I recommend those 3 books.
And even if you're in a relationship right now and you might be looking at us and thinking, oh, they have such a good relationship or anything like that, we've worked hard to get here and you can do the exact same. So if you're in a relationship right now and you're not that happy or you want to make it better, as long as you have that will to want to make it better and both parties do, then I think you can accomplish anything.
So in this video we are going to be going through how to choose a partner that's perfect for you.
Ooh.
Our first and most important epiphany that we had when it comes to relationships. The shortcut to a strong relationship.
Interesting.
What,
I haven't heard any of these, by the way.
What brushing off the dust means. How you can use selfish desires to level up your relationship. Trust. How to deal with arguments quickly and healthily. The best books for a healthy relationship. And then finally, the 3 biggest mistakes that we or I see people making in relationships.
Woohoo! At the very start, this was even before we were together, we kept reading relationship books and it kept coming up that like you need to work on your relationship in order to make it better, because I think both of us with previous partners, we didn't really see it as that. It was like if there was tough times, it was almost like, oh well, we can't overcome this, like we're doomed kind of thing. But one of the main things and the most important thing we realised is that if we have a tough time, that we have skills that we can overcome it with. So I think that was the main thing that made us be like, oh shit, as long as you want to be together, there may be tough times and there always will be at some point in your relationship, but having the skills and realising that by working on your relationship you can actually overcome them instead of just being like, right, let's throw in the towel.
Yeah, so summarising
that was good.
Summarising that, I would say that relationships are a skill.
Yes.
Because you've got to understand.
Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent. Andrew's so direct and logical, and I'm like, so, off with the fairies.
Yeah, so relationships are a skill, something that you can learn, something you can get better at. And of course, at the beginning, there's going to be things that you're not very good at. You won't know how to deal with arguments. Well, it's lucky you're watching this video because in a minute we're going to show you how to deal with arguments.
Stay tuned.
But stuff like...
I'm spilling the tea.
No. Stuff like... the different subsections of relationship, like healthy communication,
yeah,
or how to make the other person feel better about themselves. That's all skills that you can learn. And just because at the start you're not completely perfect, you never have arguments, that's something that you can get better at with time.
Yeah.
And you've got to recognize that. It's the very first thing that you've got to recognize if you're willing, if you want to have a relationship for the long term.
Yeah.
Recognizing that it's a skill that you can get better at, and when you become amazing at the skill of relationship,
yeah,
then that's when all of the amazing fulfilling rewards get back, where you just go through and it's just a perfect match. Not perfect,
yeah,
but it's just a very good match and you get along swimmingly.
Yeah, I really agree. And that only comes with time. Like at the start we thought we had an amazing relationship, and we did in like a different sense. Like there was definitely like a lot of chemistry there, and it was very honeymoon phase and things like that. But now we have like a deep love.
Yeah, it's time and conscious effort, because
yes,
you can go through time and not make improvements, but you've got to recognize, I want to get better at this skill. How can I get better at this skill?
Yeah, and just putting in actual effort instead of putting it to one side and not really seeing your relationship as a thing you need to work on.
And one way that you can get better at this skill, which is the shortcut to a strong relationship, would be asking each other questions, where you write down specific sets of questions that you ask the other person, which can also be used as a tool before you ask them out to make sure if your value system is in the right place.
Yeah.
Or you can just simply ask each other questions that you've never asked before, stuff like the difficult questions, like you should never go out with someone, or even definitely not marry someone, if you haven't talked about
children,
debt, children, whether they want a marriage, whether they're in this for the long run.
Yeah.
But that's just the surface level questions. There's so many different questions that you can go into, like, in this situation, how would you do this? How would you punish your kids?
Yeah.
Are you willing to move to Australia for 2 years after finished university, which is like our plan? Like, you've got to ask each other these specific questions.
To find out like the deep value, not just like the surface, like, oh, I want to get married.
Yeah.
Like actually what they truly want.
Yeah.
We should tell them, the viewers, about the relationship theory questions.
Okay, so there's a list of questions, and I'll put it down in the description, which is a list of questions that Tom Bilyeu and Lisa Bilyeu, who are two people that have founded $1 billion company and have gone ahead to have an incredibly healthy relationship working together.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years, crazy, and you can just tell that there's a lot of passion in their relationship. They've came up with a list of 26 different questions that you can ask the other person that are designed to make sure that you're the right match for each other, and if you're already together, tells you exactly what you need to do to have the perfect relationship.
And if you find some of those questions hard to answer, like, that's okay to find it hard to answer, but at least in the future you can work on those questions, or maybe you'll have to come back to it. Maybe you find it really hard at the start, but maybe in like 2 weeks' time you can come back to the question.
Yeah.
It might not be as hard.
Yeah.
And it starts off really easy, and then the last question is meant to be the hardest.
Yeah. And if you find a question that's hard to answer, then that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it shows that there's something that you can work on in your relationship.
Yeah, that's what we keep doing as well. Even when we have like the difficult conversations, we look at it as a good thing because we're getting so much from it. So even if we don't call them arguments, because we don't really ever argue, we more have like disagreements.
Yeah.
Disputes.
But we're not even disagreeing, it's just stuff that we need to talk about and stuff that we need to discuss. Whether it's the way we go about arguments, which this is actually leading on to the next point perfectly, which is what brushing off the dust means.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so instead of something being difficult and you just saying, oh, let's just forget about it, because sometimes that's the easy option to say, oh, you know, let's just forget about it. It's fine, it's fine. But the thing is, if you keep doing that for years and years and years, even months and months, you're going to have so much dust under the carpet, and eventually the dust is going to come to the surface. So by having those conversations, they may be difficult, but by having them, it takes the dust and it completely gets rid of it.
Yeah.
So
it kind of reminds me of when we were trying to clean the Hoover the other day.
Yeah.
And there was just so much dust clogged up that people hadn't cleaned that it completely stopped the Hoover from working.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So what dust means in this metaphor of brushing off the dust, it's just things that most relationships would just ignore. Maybe the other person insulted you and you think, oh, it's not a big deal, I'll just let it slide. Maybe the other person snapped at you and you say, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm just going to let it slide. Maybe the other person
did something to make you feel uncomfortable and you're like, oh, it's just one time, he's never done it before, or she's never done it before. Oh, I'll forget about it. Or you didn't like the way, you know, they did anything. But it's just bringing that to the surface and saying, oh, why did you do that? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and then you discuss it through in a logical manner when you're both calm and emotional and unemotional, because at that point you haven't got to the stage where you can't control your emotions, but you're able to just blow off the dust until there's a completely clean slate.
And every time you have a clear...
Because if you don't do that, then the dust is going to settle, and then there'll be one time that you get in an argument and everything comes spilling out. Stuff like, oh, and also remember that time that you did this when we were at our cousin's wedding 4 years ago, and then you also did this 6 years ago when this happened.
And that's been annoying me ever since. And it's like, how is the other person meant to know?
Yeah.
You need to remember your partner is not a mind reader. Like, you need to tell them what you want and how you want it and blah de blah.
Yeah. Blah de blah.
No, and how you want it. You need to tell them what you want and how you want it. Good advice.
Okay. How you can use selfish desires to level up the relationship. So what selfish desires means is that there's some things that you're going to want to do, and there's going to be other things that your partner wants to do. Maybe as a stereotype, it's the girl that wants to go shopping, and this just really isn't Claire because she doesn't like shopping. But maybe for it's the guys, you want to go to the cinema and watch some nerdy film. Most of the time this isn't going to work because one of the parties is either going to do it begrudgingly, they're going to do it and kind of just be there moaning and not fully engaged, or they're just going to refuse to do it at all. They say that's a waste of time. But by recognizing that there's both things that one person in the relationship wants to do, and you say to the other person, right, so for the first part of the day, we're going to do some of my selfish desires.
Yeah.
Then for the second part of the day, we're going to do some of your selfish desires. What that means is that in the example that I gave, you end up going to the cinema and then you go shopping. But because the partner that normally doesn't want to do the situation knows that they're going to get something out of it, it turns it into a fun thing where the other person is actually fun and engaged and present in the moment and actually enjoys the thing that the other partner wants to do.
We've done that a lot with like movies and stuff. So Andrew might pick a movie and he's like, you know, I really want to watch this and I'm maybe not too fussed about it, but he's like, oh, this is my selfish desire, and I'm like, oh, that's fine. And can you give me a back massage later, as my selfish desire. And it just works both ways, and neither of you have resentment, because you're just both getting like what you want, but in a nice way.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Trust.
Ooh, trust.
Where would you start with trust?
I think it comes with time. You might not necessarily have the best trust at the start of the relationship for various different reasons, but I think with time and conscious effort you can build a lot of trust. And also we say that there's like a trust wall. So we've said, because we have a lot of trust in each other, we've built like a really high brick wall of trust, and anytime trust is taken away or either of us does something that affects our trust, it's like little bricks falling off the wall. So we try not to let that happen, because we want to build the wall stronger and bigger instead of letting it fall and crumble. Yeah,
and each brick is built by every single tiny act that you do that just strengthens the trust. So for example, if Claire tells me something personal about her and then we have a dispute an hour later, every time that I don't bring up that thing that I could use to insult her, that's building a brick. Or every time that I'm around temptation and I don't succumb to it, I'm building that brick. Every single day you can build that brick on brick on brick until you get a wall that's so strong that the example that Tom and Lisa use in their relationship theory, that Lisa could walk into a bed with Tom and another woman in it and she would assume that the other woman had got into the bed when Tom was asleep. There's just so much trust there that she knows that that is something so out of Tom's character that it won't happen.
And that, you might be thinking that's crazy, and I used to think that was crazy too, but think about it, that's 20 years of conscious effort, building relationships, doing so much to make that relationship amazing, and Tom's obviously never done anything major to take away her trust, and the same with her. So for him to do something like being in a bed with another woman is just completely out of character.
Yeah.
So that's why, but we'll get to that stage one day.
So the next one is how to deal with arguments quickly and healthily.
You can explain this.
So I think that there's three separate sections that you go about this question. The first one is what you do before arguments, and for that I would simply say is you don't let the dust settle before it gets to an argument. You go about the process of talking about the little things that are bothering you as soon as it comes up.
Yeah.
Or actually, not as soon as it comes up, you leave it time and then you approach it maybe an hour or two later when your emotions have calmed down.
And it's in, neither of you are really emotional, you're both calm and you're both receptive to what's being said.
Yeah.
Because when your emotions are highly strong, you're going to be defensive and you're like, I didn't do that. But when you're both at an emotionally like stable level, you can be like, oh yeah, I did that, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So going back to how to deal with arguments quickly and healthily, and there's three sections. Before the argument happens, you constantly blow off the dust to make sure there's nothing there. During the argument, you've got to make sure that you have perfect communication. Now, there's a lot of different things that you've got to avoid, and there's actually a book that I'll get onto in my next point that's going to break this down for you step by step. But stuff like saying, you always do this.
Yeah.
Or, you are this kind of person. There's different things that you've got to consciously avoid saying, because they're the kind of things that are going to do real damage. So when you're in the relationship, you make sure that you stay as calm as possible, and if you need to, you can take a 5-minute breather. We call it parking ourselves, where we just sit out and we let our emotions calm down so we can discuss the matter in a logical and rational manner. That's what I would do during the argument. And then after the argument, we've got a very specific system that we like to use to make sure that that argument never happens again. And that goes something along the lines of, I would say, I've done this wrong, this is what I could do better. Then the other person
and then I'll say, I did this wrong, next time I can do this better. But it takes that one person to say it first, and then if you keep practicing, the other person will naturally say it back.
Yeah.
It might not happen the first few times, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And we have gotten really good at that.
So first of all, you say, I should have done this better. The second person says, I should have done this better. So you're not saying you could have done this better, you're taking it upon yourself. I'm in control of this situation, this is what I could have done better.
Everything is my fault.
Hopefully the other person then says, this is what I could have done better. And then the first person says, what would you have liked me to do better next time we have the argument?
And then I'll say something, and then I'll be like, what would you like me to do better? And then he says something, and then we're like, everything's good.
Yeah.
And when you say everything's good and can we move on, you need to truly like let go of it. that's another thing, because there's no point just saying yeah, everything's fine, because that's just sweeping things under the carpet. You need to let go of it and throw it away.
Okay. Final 2 points. Last one is best books for a healthy relationship, and there's 3 books that we've read about relationships. First one is Love, the 5 Love Languages, and there's going to be links to all of these in the description.
Which I really like.
Yeah, you should check that out, because it'll let you know what you need to do to the other person that's going to make them happy and fill up their love tank.
Yes.
The second book is it's called something skills, and I'll leave a link down to it in the description, which is basically like a textbook for relationships.
Yeah.
Which is going to teach you how to have
skills or something like that.
Yeah, there'll be a link, but that teaches you how to have perfect communication. It teaches you how to deal with arguments. It's like a textbook, and it says, if this situation is happening, this is how you deal with it in an effective and healthy manner. Blah 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 blah. And there's every different thing that could happen in a relationship, and it breaks it down perfectly. The final book, Mindful Relationship Habits. And what this is it's going to give you multiple different habits that you can try and implement one at a time, that's going to use it to nurture back the spark if it's gone, or start building up the bricks and building up a joyful and fulfilling relationship. So again, all 3 links for those in the description. And if you are in a relationship or looking to get in a relationship, I recommend those 3 books. And
even if you're in a relationship right now and you might be looking at us and thinking, oh, they have such a good relationship or anything like that, we've worked hard to get here, and you can do the exact same. So if you're in a relationship right now and you're not that happy, or you want to make it better, as long as you have that will to want to make it better, and both parties do, then I think you can accomplish anything.
Very inspiring.
Thanks.
3 biggest mistakes we see people making in relationships.
1, thinking that someone has to be perfect, because nobody's perfect and everyone has flaws. So thinking, I want to find the perfect girl or the perfect guy. Good luck with that, because they don't exist. Number 2?
Like I was saying earlier, recognizing that, well, it's kind of similar to your one, but there's always going to be disputes or arguments, but it's about how you deal with those arguments. It's about recognizing that you can deal with them, and not just giving up as soon as an argument comes up and thinking, oh, they're not the perfect one to me. Because in Disney, you see all these perfect relationships living happily ever after.
Yeah.
In reality, that only exists with conscious effort, and by recognizing that, you will be able to live happily ever after.
And I think no matter who you were with, it would happen. So think to yourself, I don't think it's the person, it's how you deal with it, because no matter who you're with, you're probably going to have disputes now and again. Maybe not at the start in the honeymoon phase, but definitely as you get into a more deeper relationship, there'll be things that you disagree on, but it's how you deal with it. And the 3rd one is people thinking that, because in this day and age it's so easy to access like other girls' pictures and other boys' pictures and things like that through Tinder, Instagram, things like that. So just, what would you say? Keeping
your focus on the one person, because it now feels as if there's billions of options. Whereas in the olden days, from what I've heard from my parents and grandparents, you would have a small circle of friends, and they were the only people that you could choose your partner out of. But nowadays, thanks to the internet and thanks to Instagram and thanks to Tinder, it now feels as if there's a billion options, which is forcing people or encouraging people to just give up their relationship and find someone else when things start to get a little difficult.
Because they're like, oh, she looks perfect, he looks perfect. But as I said, you'll get into it and you'll soon realise that you have to work at every relationship, and no relationship is going to come easy. Yeah.
So that's it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, then make sure you give it a like. If you're new around here, then subscribe. And if you've got any questions, then Claire and I will answer them. Just leave them down in the comments.
Whoop, whoop. Bye!
Perfect.
That was so good.
That was good.
Peace out. Ow, ow, ow.
20 minutes.